Hi, so I'm going to be doing a quick guide for installation of Altair Hyperworks for UBCO Motorsports. So first you're going to want to go to connect.altair.com and you're going to want to create a profile using your alumni.ubc email address. It should automatically authenticate it and approve it, so you should be able to access this screen. There may be a email just approval that you have to accept. All right, so you're going to want to go to downloads to Hyperworks, and then from there you're going to want to select your suite version, which will be 2017, your platform, which in this case for most of you will be Windows 64, and then you're going to want to select your packages. So for us, you can download all of them. Obviously, for most of us, virtual wind tunnel will not be very useful. Click to extrude metal and click to extrude polymer will not be very useful, and some of the other ones may or may not be useful depending on what exactly you want to do with Altair. There's a quick description of what the software does beside each of them, so you can read that and decide if you want to download them all. You will be able to run all of them, but it's just how much space you have on your disk and how long you want to wait for the download. So you definitely want your Hyperworks desktop. You'll most likely want your Hyperworks solvers and SimLab, and possibly Solid Thinking, Inspire, and Evolve. Other ones can be downloaded, though these are the ones I chose to download. So you're going to want to start all of these downloads. And though you won't need necessarily all of them depending on what you're doing. So you won't need like the remote job submission. You may or may not need the additional. I haven't been able to go through all of that to confirm what exactly is needed. You'll also need to download the license manager. And for this, you'll want Windows 7, 8.1, and 10. So download that. And then here in the documentation, you'll want to open up the one of the installation guides. They're all fairly similar. The installation or quick installation guide is probably the easiest. And you'll also want to open up the README in the license manager. You might not necessarily need to follow the README and the different documentation, like the installation guides, but just in case, if you're having issues or if you're not sure of anything, you can reference that or come at ask me a question about it. From there, you're going to want to download. So for instance, here I have the SimLab, solvers, desktop, and licensing downloads downloaded. So those exe files, you're going to first want to run the licensing exe. It'll run a start preparing to install, and you're going to want to run the installer. I've already done this, so I'm not sure exactly how it'll work for the second time, but we'll see. So you're going to want to go next. this thing will not generally pop up for you if you haven't installed it already. So I'm going to confirm an upgrade, even though it's essentially the same thing. So you're going to want to choose your install directory. I've chosen the default one, which is C program files, Altair, licensing 13.2. This is probably the easiest place because it'll be the default folder, and if you're having any troubleshooting issues, it'll be the easiest to find. So now you have an option. You will either be able to choose a license file path or choose to install one at a later date. This screen was slightly different the first time around. So because I already have an old license file path, I can select that. However, you can either choose that path to the license file that I sent in the group chat, or you can choose to add in the license file later, I believe. So I'm going to click on the old license file path because I don't need to change my license file path. Now it will begin installing. It could take a minute. And I'm going to cut now and wait till it installs. Okay, so now that you've managed to accomplish that, you should have a licensing 13.2 folder within program files and Altair, and have this folder with these various folders and files in it. So you're going to want to replace the Altair _license.dat file with the one that I've provided you in the group chat, and you're going to want to confirm in the altair-serve.cfg file. So you're going to want to run that as a notepad. I've already done this previously, so it knows to run it as a notepad. So you're going to want to have it should automatically set your default TCP support to 6200. Unless you've done some configuration with your router, that shouldn't be a problem. And then the other thing you're going to want to confirm is that this line right here where it says license_file equals, you want to make sure that is the place where you have put your license file. So if you haven't done anything different, that should be the default location, and it should be the same. Now you're most likely going to want to copy this, because the next thing you have to do is to create an environment variable to point to this license. So in Windows 10, you're going to want to go to System Properties, Advanced System Settings, and then from there you're going to want to go to Environment Variables. So I've already created one. So now this would not be there normally, so you're going to want to create a new system variable. The variable name does not matter, however the variable value does. So you're going to browse for a file, or going to copy in that pre-selected license file location, and then obviously you click OK. I don't need to because I've already created it. So now your license server for the local operation should be properly installed. From here, you're going to want to install the individual packages that you've decided to download. I believe it is possible to download them all in a batch using the master installer, although I did not have any success doing that. I just chose to install them individually So if you run the desktop HyperWorks 2017.2 Windows 64 EXE, that will give you the majority of the HyperWorks utilities. So you'll get programs such as OptiStruct, MotionSolve, HyperMath, HyperStudy, Basic FEA, HyperMesh Desktop. Most of the programs come from that desktop install. And that will be the majority of the programs that you're going to need. Solvers as well, and then SimLab are the three that I chose to install, although you may choose to install different programs. All right, I think that does it. Running the actual installer itself is fairly standard. Now, these are all quite big files, so the HyperWorks desktop is 1.6 gigabytes. The solvers is approximately 2, and the same with SimLab. So they're all quite big programs, so they'll take a while to install. I suggest, plugging your computer into an Ethernet port if you can, just so that you don't have any connection issues while doing that. I had a fairly good connection, and it took me still quite a long time to get those done. So that should be good, and if you have any questions, please let me know.